Welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be back. It's the 10th day of April 2016. My name is Doug Owen. I'm your host, and you can go to my website, blacklistedradio.com. We have an interactive chat room there. You can join me telephonically if you call in. Ken will be more than happy to take your phone call at 800-313-9443. And if you don't feel like talking on the phone, but you have topics or questions you'd like to bring to the discussion, we love that. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can text me at 512-222-3067. And, of course, on Twitter at BLN Radio. Wow. So many things to talk about. We only have an hour. I know that most of the live listening audience, this is just a blip in your day of online talk radio. So we try to condense about a week into this show. This week, we actually did a really good podcast. It was really fun with Craig Simpson, exclusively at blacklistedраdio.com. You can get it there. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, all of the usual places that you can listen to the show from. We did it commercial-free, about an hour. We talked about an array of topics, including the Panama Papers and government doing what it does best, or trying to do what it does best, and that is clean things for people. And by that, it's almost a metaphor, but most of the things that we see government being used for in our day-to-day lives is the enforcement of rules, no matter how arbitrary, silly, ridiculous, unconstitutional, and even more, just downright wrong. But it's really a tool for enforcing different codes, different criteria for living in a sanitized, happy place, along with, well, as we see this move towards, huge mega cities in this country. I live in one now in Austin, Texas. We have over 2 million people, and that's just a huge migration, an importation of people into one area, and to see the massive amounts of growth, almost wasted growth when you really think about it. I mean, people are moving from perfectly good homes, places that have plenty of resources, in the search for jobs, opportunity, and that happens to be where I'm at today. So the migration of people to condensed areas brings problems. And so we talk about some of those and some ridiculous things that the Seattle mayor is trying to enforce, like letting people put RVs in front of your home, homeless people getting jalopies and basically camping out in your front yard. That is one of the ridiculous things that we see today. So we talked about that. Yes, this is live radio if you're in the chat room. Good to see some folks in there. It's nice. I want to talk about money. Money's, when it comes to what's important in your life, I think if I ask most of the audience, the easy answer is money and health. The two things that most people have to worry about. If you've got health, you're doing pretty well in this world. But don't take it for granted. And if you have money, you can, you have to have a little bit of money to have health if you live in the United States of America, unless you're completely off the grid. And that's a lot of work. And when you look at time and, the metric I use, which is money, how much time is your time worth, or how much money is your time worth? That becomes, if you're somebody that's, completely self-sufficient, it's a lot of time. So you're putting a lot of effort, and thus there is a lot of value in that. So, one of the big takeaways from the Panama Papers, or one of the, agenda items, the talking points, is to get people upset about tax scams. And that is not the scam itself, that is income taxes and all of the other, outside of this country, value-added taxes, VAT taxes, carbon taxes, new economies being created out of commodifying different, at some point, it's going to be like Spaceballs. And we're almost there, where they're trying, if you've ever seen this movie, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's one of the I don't know. I wouldn't say it's John Candy's finest work, but it's a good movie from the 80s. It's pretty funny. But anyway, one of the things that's laughable is that the evil empire is charging people for air. So how far away are we from that? Probably not that far. So there's a lot of outrage from people on both the left and right, progressives, liberals, conservatives, right-wing people, about those in power not paying their fair share. David Cameron and his father, just endlessly rich, wanting to bring more and more taxes to the people to pay for, quote unquote, their nice, lovely society. I mean, the hypocrisy there is, the government expects you to pay your fair share and be completely transparent. People feel upset, and I feel that as well, when you feel like you're putting in your fair share and the government isn't. So I was looking at some of these headlines that just kind of blew me away. Americans are now spending more money on taxes than they are on food, clothing, and housing combined. So when you think about what the average American taxpayer is facing, and I mean, if you're in Venezuela, you've got a whole another array of options for paying taxes. Well, and by that I mean people are basically it's just turned into a socialist hellhole. I don't know how else to put it. The government's asking people women not to use hair dryers, of course, to save electricity. So go with the natural look. Food lines. I mean, it looks like something in pre World War I Soviet Union. So I try not to get too wrapped up in first world problems when I look at the real issues that people across this world are facing. But the average American taxpayer, everyone out there, is faced with this new model, and that is paying for your health care, which is just outrageously high. I mean, you can't afford to be covered, and you probably can't afford to not pay your tax to the IRS. I can go on about healthcare all day long, but taxes are the biggest chunk out of your pocket now. The tax advocacy group on Wednesday revealed that Americans spend more on taxes than their whole budget for food, clothing, and housing. The Tax Foundation, in its annual report on when the nation as a whole has earned enough to pay its taxes, announced that the date as April 24th. Almost, this year, tax day, April Fool's Day, 4/20. I mean, talk about esoteric. 4/20, your tax day. It might as well be, April 1st, April Fool's Day, because you're a fool for having to pay this many taxes. Anyway, Tax Freedom Day gives us a vivid representation of how much federal, state, and local tax revenue is collected each year to pay for government goods and services. So one of their analysts, Scott Greenberg, quoted as saying, "Arguments can be made that the tax bill is too high or too low, but in order to have an honest discussion, it's important for taxpayers to understand the cost of government. Tax Freedom Day helps people relate that cost." And, there's a lot of mouth breathers, booger eaters out there that want the government to do just about everything it can for you and demand it. The more it does, the more it costs. At some point, you have a government that is so strapped with debt that it can not produce a whole lot, and it has to tax every penny. It's really outlandish when you put it in that kind of perspective. And I think that, when you look at the Panama Papers, I mean, it just becomes minutia. People getting upset about other people not paying enough, as if, Citibank, all of these corporations that have offshored assets, even if they had paid their fair share, whatever that may be, I think, I I would pay zero taxes if I didn't think that I would have to deal with a guy in a suit with glasses with a firearm, and probably a lot of his other friends that have firearms. If I didn't have to deal with that, I wouldn't pay the taxes. So, I mean, it gets people upset about these villains, where the system itself has become the villain, and that should really be the focus. Spent a lot of time talking about that. I mean, the U.S. hypocritically, or a fine example of hypocrisy, is one of the world's largest tax havens. And a lot of this is also to of course, create new laws, transparency, information sharing, agreements with foreign nations as a way to, of course, get those bad guys, get those drug dealers, get those, those ne'er-do-wells who aren't paying their fair share. So people are clamoring, we need more government, more global government. We need more government, and every check I write, I need the government to make sure it's okay. You have countries like in Europe, Britain, namely, where politicians have come forward with ideas about taxing you before you receive your money. So you go to work, your boss sends your check to the government, and the government gives you whatever crumbs it feels you deserve. And as outlandish and outrageous as that sounds, that's their solution. See, you can't get away from paying us. You won't get the money. I mean, now, you have the option, at least in this country, to not pay. You can do everything you want on an annual basis, and or whatever kind of business you want to conduct. At the end of the year, they'll tell you if you owe them money, depending on what you tell them. But it's still, a little bit of an honor system. Not to say that if you're fibbing, the government can't come back and retroactively put you in jail and screw you. And that's even maybe more sinister, because it takes months, if not years, for them to come back and say, oh, by the way, 4.5 years ago, we see that you didn't pay $10,000, and now with penalties and interest, you owe us a cool $100,000. Now, so anyway, it's getting pretty desperate. The government, that is, the IRS, they are now accepting cash tax payments at your local 7-Eleven. There has to be some way for drug dealers to pay their fair share. And, a lot of them are going to 7-Eleven, jonesing for a Slurpee, and still need to pay your taxes. You can kill two birds with one stone with the IRS's new payment option. Taxpayers can fork over what they owe in cash at one of the participating 7,000 7-Eleven locations in the country. So you can only imagine this little racket and what it costs to bring this convenient tool for you to pay your taxes to you. I have no idea. I have no idea what it really equates to, but it shows you the desperation for the government to get money out of you any way it can. I'm a big proponent of getting rid of most of the fees and the privatization of the corrections businesses across this country, the privatized prison police state, and the school to prison pipeline that has become parasitic, where you have people being groomed to go and work for slave wages. Taxpayers foot the bill for room and board at a minimum to maximum security prison, and corporations like AT&T, Starbucks, there's a lot of them, Yahoo, that actually use prison labor, pay upwards of $0.25 per hour to employees. I mean, not even minimum wage, that are incarcerated. So, I mean, that is just such a insidious system. I mean, if you really think about that, I mean, the privatization of slave labor, as much as we hear about, oh, we need a $15 minimum wage. And, you have economists back and forth, from Paul Krugman at the New York Times to, the guys at the Mises Institute, Tom Woods, the Ron Paulites, all of those that look at the minimum wage and say, this is a job killer, or this is going to be something that's going to empower the working class in this country. $15 per hour. Now, you compare that to a quarter, you compare that to 15 to 20 cents that people are making in this country, people that are behind bars. I mean, the incentivization to move businesses, to move operations facilities from, a city like even Austin, Texas, to a private prison like CCA, the corporations, or the Corrections Corporation of America, rather. I mean, you see that push. And those things are not being talked about at all. So anyway, when I see these stories about, the local 7-Eleven now accepting your cash, and, how do you... if you're paying in cash money and you need to do it that way, why would you need to pay taxes if you don't have any recordable income? Or, and you would think that as much as they want to make sure that there's not money laundering and, the RICO laws and all of that in this country, you would think that taking cash from a 7-Eleven may not be the most legit money that you're going to be receiving, but the government doesn't care. They actually like getting money from drug dealers, prostitutes, pimps alike, all of those people. And they're making it much harder, the banking sector, for people to do business. I mean, if you're a webcam girl, how do you pay your taxes? It's hard to get a bank account. If you're selling marijuana in Colorado legally, you have a cannabis distribution center. How do you get that money back to the government when you can't go through a bank? And if you do go through a bank, there's a huge, huge story. And I've talked about it often because it's actually affected me and my cigar business, which is Operation Choke Point, using the banks to go after primarily gun dealers as a way to kind of have a soft backdoor gun control measure. You can't do business online if you don't have some kind of bank account. PayPal is not going to take your money. You're probably not going to be able to use the Facebook Pay system or the Apple Pay wall that's now available. It's funny enough, totally off topic, thinking about all these new pay systems, the new digital wallets. I mean, Bitcoin beyond. You have the ISIS wallet that was right before the ISIS epidemic, the crisis of ISIS. I saw billboards for, and I'm sure that they have had to adjust their naming of that product. I don't know what it is, but you probably can't get the ISIS wallet any longer. If you probably look for the ISIS wallet, you'll probably go to jail. Or you'll get harassed and maybe raided. Anyway, so there you go. Here's another fine indicator, and I try not to turn this into a doom and gloom financial end of the world show. Although, excuse me there, coughing. Even though, I mean, that's kind of on the trajectory that America's headed. Here's another example from the Wall Street Journal. More than 40% of student borrowers aren't making payments. Why? Well, they might be lucky to get out there and get a $15 an hour job. Maybe not. Depends on what your skill set is. And the government has been, doing everything it can to, show how great America is, the American dream, going to college and getting in debt for the rest of your days. And if you're lucky, you may get some of your Social Security back. We'll talk about this and much more. Your phone calls are welcome. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Bilderberg is going to meet in Dresden from the 9th to the 12th in June, according to a German newspaper report. So we'll have more to talk about there. The New World Order, the mega-rich political elite hanging out and talking about all of these pesky slaves and the best way to subjugate you all. With that being said, let's go to the phone lines. 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. if you'd like to chime in, and we go to Minnesota to talk to Mike. Mike, welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
Hey, Doug, how you been?
Good, man. I'm well. How are you?
I'm working on it. As far as the fair share, well,
right.
There's nothing fair about it. Okay, so let's get that one out of the way.
Yeah, it's kind of Orwellian mind control, isn't it? Fair share, you know.
I mean, what? You mean everyone gets fairly screwed? I went to a powwow back in 2010 when they were doing a census.
Uh-huh.
And they're passing all these paddles around to fan yourself. Cause it's like I don't know how they do it. They pick the hottest day of the year every year for the powwow, you know, and you feel like you're on the Trail of Tears. I mean, but anyways, so they're passing all this stuff out, talking about, you know, sign up for the census, you know, make sure you fill the form out because you got to get your fair share.
Right.
These people don't realize who they're talking to. And they're telling me all this stuff. You know, like, and it's for schools, and we need it, you know, and it's like, I'm like, you know what? It comes out of somebody's pocket. This money doesn't appear out of thin air. It's taken at gunpoint from others for the schools and everything else. And it's like, they just look at you like you got 6 eyes.
Right.
I swear. And what was the other deal? Okay, so you owe some money, and they call you 4 years later and say, "Oh yeah, now it's a cool $100,000."
Right.
You owe them. Okay, that you owe them. Well, generally, to owe someone, you got to borrow it first. If you didn't borrow the money, how the hell you owe it to them? Try to tell that one to. With 38 or 15 surrounding your house or something, and Mo Shekel wants his money.
That's right. I mean,
I don't get it. You owe them $500, and they'll murder you for no more reason than to make an example to all the other slaves. You see what we did to him? That's what we'll do to you.
They have a monopoly on force.
You're alive in your own house. Just to make a point. They really will.
Sure.
And, don't scream. How'd you even get in the house? I'm sorry, I had to pick my cat up. And,
that's okay.
And so, you know, this whole thing with a fair share and we owe, and it's like, you know, I never borrowed it. I remember trying to have a conversation. It probably wasn't a good idea, but a government kind of conversation with my accountant. Because an accountant is a facilitator. He's the facilitator to help screw you for the government.
He makes sure it's correctly screwed. You're correctly screwed, and you're getting the proper amount of screwing. No more, no less. Yeah, it becomes this industry.
I mean, it's just.
No,
and they're cheap too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate. Go ahead.
Never mind. You got to get off. Okay. Well, I just wanted to throw my 2-cent rant, and thanks a lot.
No, I appreciate it. I really do, Mike. And yeah, I think that most people feel that way, that they're not getting any kind of return, any ROI on their investment. You have to pay to work in this country, and that's why people do what they can. I think a lot of people that believe that. There's some people that actually believe that they owe this money and that it's just because you're getting services. People want schools. They take their kids to schools and they figure that that's, you know, a decent trade-off. You babysit my kids so I can pay you, and I have to work till April 24th this year just to pay that money. I could be at home with them, but, you know, I got to go out there and do this. And, I mean, you talk about taxes. The reason that, you know, no one in government or most of the large lobbies like H&R Block and others that are, like Mike said, facilitators, have no interest in making it simple. They would like to make it as complex as possible and every turn charge you more money for this forced service. We'll go to Nevada and pick up some more phone calls. You can be part of it, 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. And welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Doug Owen here with you live. You can go to blacklistedradio.com, interactive chat room, and streams there, free on the house. You get to hear some of the background chatter there from the live Spreaker stream because we broadcast exactly as I hear it. So it's kind of cool if you want to hear me coughing and playing with my kid during the breaks. Before we go to Nevada, I just wanted to mention this other article I had highlighted. Former U.S. tax judge charged with cheating on her tax returns. A retired U.S. tax judge and her husband have been charged in Minnesota with cheating the government of $400,000 in taxes in a scheme that treated personal spending such as jewelry, Pilates classes, and overseas vacations as business expenses, prosecutors said on Monday. And the thing that I take away from this is that, business expenses, people go on vacations, people write that off as entertainment. You don't get a lot of return on writing it off as entertainment. I just don't really see the problem here. Pilates, why not? I mean, you can work that into a creative way to work with clients. They had a consulting business. Anyway, they were going to destinations like the Bahamas, Greece, and Thailand, and on and on and on. They were, using it to pay off wine club fees. I guess they just got a little too, greedy here. But anyway, so they said that they failed to disclose $44,520, which seems really, really nominal, really, to me. But nobody is above this, and I think that you have these tax judges. Shame on you out there if that's your job. Actually, I just feel sorry for you. What a horrible job. Just making people's lives miserable and stripping livelihood and spirit away from people. So don't have a lot of love for these cheaters, but they're the same kind of people that, have put people in jail for... probably years. Probably put many other people in jail. And so there is some irony there because of that. As I block my door here from my 2-year-old. Let's see. I gotta go, bro. Gotta do a radio show. I mean, I guess you can sit around and yell in the background, but it's kind of cool because we're progressing here. You're at this point where you don't have to put things or you can put things on the table and it's safe. And then you get to a point where, nothing's safe, and as they get, more developed and more advanced, they find more and more ways to work themselves into my office and the radio show. So there we go. Let's talk with some callers, 800-313-9443. And we have... Let's see, Chris in Nevada. Chris, welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
Well, I thank you so very much. They don't call them the terrible twos for nothing,
Yeah. It's not too terrible. He's just, they're into everything and they're learning. He's at the why phase. Why? So, I don't know. It's fun. He's pretty well-mannered, all in all.
Your observations about the judge up there, sort of the man and fly in the face of that pretensive myth of judicial immunity from prosecution, don't they?
You would think. I don't know. He's retired, though, or she was retired, so I don't know. I don't know how that worked.
There's something more to that picture than meets the eye, I would observe. However, what I did also observe is last Thursday there was a rather ostentatious and in-your-face meeting of a bunch of former and the current so-called head of the Fed, and they were all lauding their contributions to managing our so-called money supply of debt notes, and they said everything was fine, there was nothing to worry about, business as usual, but now all of a sudden on Zero Hedge today, there's an article that says there's an unexpected meeting with Yellen on expedited procedures that's coming up. And that would certainly cause reason to have plausible cause to watch very closely, because it's a secret meeting, of course, as they always are, because when they're plotting against we the people, that's grounds for extra special introspection.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the job of the Fed, there is this quasi immunity. They're supposed to be unbiased, and they're really just loaning money. They have a monopoly on it, but they're loaning money to the government. And so the government wants to borrow more, and they're more than happy and tell you that, hey, we're doing this at a really low interest rate. I mean, we're not charging you much for all this free money that we've printed out of thin air. When it comes to Janet Yellen, I mean, it's more and more of the same. I don't know if this is something that's going to, really have some kind of explosive recoil in markets, or if it's just more of the same, more secret meetings. I mean, they can't raise the interest rates and they can't drop the interest rates. And now in Europe, you have negative interest rates. And I mean, how much are you gonna pay a bank to hold your money is going to be the question, without creating, huge economic waves. So, as far as the Fed and what they have been able to accomplish since 2008 has been very limited, pushing money and using, we just had a big article about how the Federal Reserve has moved up to 80% of the market since 2008. That means they're investing in corporations, keeping some afloat and letting others die. They are now controlling pretty much almost all of the U.S. and I would say foreign stock markets. And, there's been a lot of winners and there have been a lot of losers on that. So it's a managed and controlled economy, and it's really just a farce at this point.
A farce. Falsity. That's a very good observation. In fact, given the recent amendment to the so-called Smith-Mundt, M-U-N-D-T Act.
A lot of people don't know about that, actually, Chris. That's a good observation. Yeah, that they can use propaganda against the people of the U.S. now.
And use all their government licensed entities, the so-called news or snooze news, more accurately, the lamestream media, to put out that propaganda and have it advertised on the 5 o'clock news to be true.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Well, and doesn't that make it a fail-safe position that every American should diligently employ to be, don't believe a thing that they put out? Because if you're looking here, it's probably over there. It's a great mass of whack-a-mole, deception, and obfuscation. While they're really getting ready to implode the economy, they're going to reset, revalue, and come up with new currency to give you the illusion that the new currency is going to be worth more than the last one that's worth less.
Oh, yeah, and it's all based on debt, and it's really, it's just the 21st century version of the tally stick. And it was a debt stick to figure out how much debt you owed to the king, and people would trade debt with one another, debt to the king. And, the reason that the tally stick had value was because the king had his sword and his henchmen, and if you didn't pay him correctly in that tally stick, head off. So, yeah, exactly. You got all of these other systems. Okay, Bitcoin, that sounds great, but you're just using unfathomable amounts of electricity to create algorithms that produce and mine coins. And in my mind, that just seems almost, just nonsensical. Other alternatives that are supposed to be non-state sanctioned, are they going to have that kind of value? The value that is perceived, or that we give most currencies, is because the power of government and the monopolization of force once again. So it's going to be interesting. Japan is now looking at using fingerprints as currency. They've got some other ideas that they may be able to get people on board with, maybe some Facebook tokens or something. It's going to be interesting to see that transition. And when it does happen, and thanks for the call, Chris, I appreciate it. What is going to happen? Are you going to be able to transfer real wealth? People that have gold, other tangible, real assets, may be able to convert over to a new system. They may win. A lot of people that had drachmas and different liras, when the European countries came together, when they really had the unveiling of the euro, there were definite winners and losers in that. You know, a lot of people got a really good exchange rate on that euro, and, you know, you had some instant millionaires, and then a lot of people got screwed. Greece comes to mind. So there's that. So thanks for the phone call. One of the things I wanted to mention was, and it's something that Chris there touched upon, in the CIA and the Smith-Mundt Act, and the CIA being able to use propaganda domestically against the U.S. citizens. And of course, we had the Smith-Mundt Act because that was one of the things that came out of the church commissions back in the early 70s, and that was, you didn't want the CIA controlling what the people think, because the government and people in government from time to time want to use the media, which is controlled and contrived, to control people and to get them to support maybe things that they wouldn't support if they had a full spectrum view, if they had a better vantage point. Getting people into wars and paying for those wars. People normally, most human beings, don't want to deal with death and war and all of the things that come with that, all of the unintended consequences and the cost. War is not cheap. Global weapons spending, 2015, $1.7 trillion in weapons. A lot of that because of what's happening in the Middle East, and the U.S., the largest gun dealer in the world. But I saw this. You can find it at Blacklisted News. Not a joke. The CIA helped produce an episode of Top Chef and other shows and movies. If you're not familiar, the CIA actually has venture capitalist things, shells like In-Q-Tel and a myriad of other ones that they use to fund movies and to, propagandize the American people. So oddly, you expect it in Scorpion, or you expect it in Homeland, or the Transformer movies. You expect it in military blockbusters. I even expect it in Stan Lee, DC and Marvel comic book movies. Captain America, wearing camouflage. That doesn't shock me. I think it's pretty disgusting, and it shows you how, we could just talk about movies and media and how deceptive and how it's been used. I think back to Disney and the old Donald Duck. There's this. You probably saw it as a child if you're my age. It's still out there, but basically Donald Duck being guilt tripped into paying income taxes to save for that, and we have to think about the boys in the war, and we got to think about all of these other things that we have to pay for. La 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 la. You got to pay your fair share. So anyway, it's not surprising, but pretty interesting. Vice Media says they all receive support from the CIA's Office of Public Affairs, the division that interacts with journalists and acts as the liaison with the entertainment industry, but the exact nature and extent of what the OPA did while working on Patterson's book and 2 other documentaries is unknown, because the CIA does not have a record of its meetings. Conveniently, stream may have died. Let's see. Nope, it's still good to go, Craig Simpson. But anyway, there's some, Top Gun is a fine example of CIA-funded propaganda. Red Dawn, 1984. Perfect example of CIA propaganda. But it goes on. They're funding all sorts of things. So that's why, I think the best thing that you can do to shield yourself from silly propaganda is always look at what the intended response should be. I'm supposed to be outraged. I'm supposed to be scared. I'm supposed to give more money to the government. What is it that is the perceived solution when you see this? What should I do? What should I believe? Where should I go? Who should I be mad at? And ultimately, does that response mean that I support a politician or I support some agenda? If you look at it that way, then you'll probably be able to use that along with trivium and common sense to see through most of the propaganda. But it does work on people, especially the simple-minded. Most of you listening are not the simple-minded, and if you are listening, of course, you don't think that I'm talking about you being simple-minded. A few of you are, but for the most part, people are that they're trusting. And people that believe in the fair share also believe that the government's probably trying to do its best for you. Here's another one. Beauty secrets of the spies. CIA's venture capital arm is funding skincare products that collect DNA. This isn't creepy at all. The previously undisclosed relationship with the CIA might come as a surprise. Isn't that what the last headline said? It may come as a surprise. Not really. To visitors of the website Clarista, the main product line of Skin Sential Sciences, which boasts of a formula so you can feel confident and beautiful in your skin's most natural state. Who doesn't want to be confident and beautiful? Those are two things that'll get you pretty far in this world. Through the public-facing side of the company touts a range of skincare products. Skin Sential Scientists developed a patent technology that removes a thin outer layer of the skin, revealing unique biomarkers that can be used for a variety of diagnostic tests, including DNA collection. So, where your tax dollars are going, who knows? You may be getting a check for some business venture that you are part of and have no idea that this is a CIA startup. Just look at many of them. Google, it's a perfect example of a CIA startup where some of the founding members may not have actually, like Sergey and crew, may not have actually known that they were being funded by the CIA and being steered into creating one of the most developed analytical spying tools, probably next to the financial system, there is known to mankind. So, also another story that bears mentioning, and you probably won't be surprised about it, but according to this report that we got from RT, take it, leave it, whatever. The CIA had a plan to topple Assad in 2002, but Barack Obama ditched it. So maybe that's where he's fallen out of favor with the neocons and others in the CIA. We'll talk about that. Wrap up the show. Still time for you. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio.
A teenage anarchist, but the politics are too convenient in the depths of...
All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. It's the final segment. So yeah, did Obama actually ditch this plan, or have there just been concessions made by those like Robert Ford, the former U.S. ambassador to Syria, and of course Leon Panetta? The CIA, it has its own agenda that sometimes is not in sync with the executive branch. So, it's a parallel deep state government that's pretty much operating outside of the scope of government and people in government. And Congress rarely, and I'm thinking back to the 70s, the last time we really saw any kind of inquiry into the dirty dealings of the CIA. But with the NSA and the CIA working in tandem, most people have dirty secrets. And if you're a politician, you have to do so many things, so much, probably, to become a high level like senator. You might be a crummy representative, but the better for them to, have that kind of dirt on you and to have that kind of control over people. If you think about people that are compromised, Hillary Clinton, she's killed so many people and done so many dirty deeds, and the Clinton Global Initiative has funded so many, narco terrorists. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton actually have pictures of themselves with literal African warlord cannibals. I mean, do average people have stuff like that? Do you have any kind of memorabilia? Do you have any with you, an SS officer that... I mean, do you have horrible people that you hang out with that give you money to do speeches for you? Probably not. Anyway, we can talk about the CIA. CIA money has kind of been the focus of the show today, and the destruction of Venezuela, running out of toilet paper, going to 3-day work weeks, weekends to try to curtail energy use. And you would think in a country that has so much oil, it would not be a problem to create electricity. It sure shouldn't be. But anyway, there you go. Some of the other things, I guess, that we can wrap the show up with, other than, the aforementioned hating to pay taxes, hating to deal with the state. This was a pretty shocking story. And I say that and think about, who you are listening to. For me to be shocked, it's pretty rare. Woman killed by police for charging a cop with an axe after they gave her an eviction notice. The thing that I was really shocked about was the graphic video of the cop shooting her in the face. If you haven't heard about this, Gallatin Police Department says it has made the video public, and I've seen it, in the interest of transparency after serving an eviction notice ended in bloodshed. LaRonda Sweat was served an eviction warrant by Sumner County Sheriff's Office at her home, where police say she threatened law enforcement with an axe and stabbed a deputy. Police were called to the scene after Sweat made an aggressive movement towards Officer James Spray. Pretty wild stuff. Yeah, check out the video. People are getting upset, and we're starting to see a lot of that transform and come out in violence. So as the state pushes, you're going to see more and more people reacting. A lot more of them probably like Miss Sweat here. All right, guys, that's my time. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Go to blacklistedradio.com, get the post-produced, commercial-free podcast. And, of course, until next week, take care.